Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przybylo here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Time for your weekly stickball report. We'll get into a little bit of basketball. So I guess this would be ball-centric, if you will.
Oh, boy. Phrasing.
Yeah, that wasn't good on my part. Interesting. All right. OU softball back on top of the college softball world, 24-1. Since the last time that we talked to you, 5 wins. Swept Iowa State over the weekend, as well as a doubleheader sweep of Tarleton State. Pray for them. Didn't think that was going to go very well for them. But I think for me, coming out of the weekend, opening conference play, the Bats came alive.
They did, especially in the second and third games, and that's something that Patty mentioned a lot. In that first game, it was kind of weird. She said what a lot of us were thinking, boring.
Yeah.
There's a 4-0, just boring.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't how we play. And they had a nice meeting between, as just like baseball, you had the doubleheader Saturday because of the weather on Friday.
The right call, too. But
yes.
Friday would have been absolutely
that would have been starting
miserable.
And stopping like the entire time.
Yeah.
But,
I don't even know if they would have been able to play with all the rain.
So they got between those games and said, let's be who we are. And they really started to do that. And it's been Sydney Sanders, obviously, that's been powering the way. And so they were pleased with how they finished with Iowa State. Tarleton State actually wasn't what Patty was hoping for, but you're just hoping maybe it's a midweek thing, tough to get emotionally invested into it when we're kind of looking ahead to Lubbock and going to Texas Tech.
No doubt. The response after this little team meeting was nothing more than 25-3 over the next 2 games to close out the weekend. The Saturday doubleheader, obviously the second game, an 11-2 victory at Run Roll, as well as a 14-1 victory on Sunday. It seems like Sydney Sanders. I always say that. I don't know why I want to call her Saunders. Sydney Sanders. She's been incredible in the month of March.
Just ridiculous. I mean,
I think she likes hitting at Loves.
That's exactly what we've heard from a lot of players, and that we've been able to talk to here during the last couple of weeks. This is a hitter's park.
Interesting. I mean, we talked about it after the first weekend. It seems like the ball flies out of there.
Quincy Lilio,
yeah.
Riley Boone,
yeah.
Hannah Core are hitting home runs at Love's Field. That gives you an idea.
The place is juiced.
Of what someone like a Sydney Sanders or Alyssa Brito might be able to do.
You heard it here first. Love's Field's a bandbox.
Deeper into the season, and what Sid's been able to do is just ridiculous. 8 home runs.
Sure.
19 runs driven in. I mean, 8 home runs in this March. We're barely now just getting to the midway part of the month. And her eye is just terrific. That's actually what I focused on in the story on the site, is that it's her patience at the plate that's setting her apart. Like, she's working the count. She's down 0-2, drawing a walk. She's being able to understand there's going to be a pitch for me to hit. Maybe I'll take 1 or 2.
Sure.
I could, but I'm going to be ready for the one that I want to attack, and I'm going to make the most of it.
Incredible. It's a little scary when you realize that they're not even really getting the production from what I think a lot of people would look in and go, oh, that's the core of their lineup, or that's the big bats in the lineup.
You're not wrong. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily why Jada Coleman's been moved around a lot, but there's been speculation.
Sure.
Like, she hasn't brought it to this point. She's still, like, dang good. Again, there's different levels. You're moving the goalpost a bit when you start talking about,
this is a different,
struggling.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about Tiara Jennings going into Sunday, 0 for her last 7. Like, that sounds like the biggest slump she's ever been in.
Sure.
And then she hits a home run in her first at bat. Like, there you go. It's like, it doesn't take much to get them back going, but it has been curious to see some of these older players who know nothing but championships and are trying to go for 4 in a row. That hunger, that passion, trying to bring it every single game. I think it has been a challenge.
Interesting. It'll be kind of fun to see how they pick back up. And, maybe the book's out on a couple of these hitters, just in terms of they've been around the college softball world for so long. I would imagine, though, that you could make a bet that they're going to be hitting the ball here before too long.
Yeah, and, they've had a really nice bounce-back weekend. And you go back to someone like Sid, and just the way that she's playing is what Patty saw when she got her out of the portal.
Sure.
Like, it might have taken her a while. It didn't happen in 2023. Very hit and miss, peaks and valleys. But this type of consistency, this type of power, that's why Gasso wanted to bring Sanders into the program. And you're seeing a lot of players are starting to round into form now that conference plays here. You got through that first month, and I'm sure we'll say the same thing about baseball. You can copy and paste a lot of the same things.
Sure.
It's like you're figuring things out. Now you're in conference season, and now your best players are starting to really assert themselves.
On the defensive side, and particularly in the circle, Kelly Maxwell, 5th no-hitter of her college career. First, I believe, with Oklahoma. Would it have been the first one that she had in a Norman?
Yeah, it was the first of the season.
For the Sooners.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yes, but it seems like Kelly Maxwell, if you're talking about a pitcher that you were going to throw into the circle in a national championship series or something like that, she'd probably be the first one out. It seems like she's rounding into form.
Yeah, she's earning that right. And
sure.
She did these back-to-back outings. You go back Saturday, Iowa State, goes all 7 innings, 126 pitches, and it's something I've mentioned. I want to see that because I know you can go like 3 innings here, 2, and like get to 7 innings between 3 arms because you're good enough. But do you have that workhorse or like that, that one dominant pitcher that is like, we're facing a really good team. We need you to shut them down. I think Kelly Maxwell's going to be that person. The 7-inning performance on Saturday, the 5-inning no-hitter with 7 Ks on Tuesday, and you can just see her confidence growing. The film work that she's doing with pitching coach Jen Rocha really coming into play. You can just tell like every appearance she's getting a little bit better because she's learning a little bit more of what she needs to do to adjust and make sure she's making the right pitches.
First road conference series of the year coming up this weekend, a trip out to Lubbock, and I know that Patty talked about it after the game on Tuesday. A little bit of a unique challenge just in terms of you might have to battle some elements, some weather, and certainly a bunch of wind. I think anybody that has followed baseball or softball, you go out to Lubbock, the wind's usually blowing out, and it's usually blowing extremely hard.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be in the 40s and 50s.
God, that sounds
with
terrible.
Like 50% chance of rain.
Fake spring.
So the wind will be coming
sure.
with it too. And you're going to have some people that have never been in that element before. And that's why I will be curious to see if like Kirsten Deal ends up getting the nod here because Kelly Maxwell, Nicole May, they know what Lubbock is all about. They would be ready for that type of moment. Maybe you throw Deal just to see if she's ready.
Yeah.
Can you survive in this environment so that we know we can trust you in April and May when we definitely think that we're going to need you too. And Texas Tech has been, knocking the cover off the ball. I know we can all talk about the 21-5 record and like who have they beaten.
Sure.
It's true. But 21-5 is very nice. You took 2 out of 3 last weekend to begin conference play, and they're going to be ready for the Sooners coming into town.
Sometimes the numbers, they don't lie, especially in the sport of baseball and softball. And, I think that Miami of Ohio might have been a little bit of a example of that, just in terms of the home run numbers that they had coming into Love's Field. And I think everybody saw what they did in that opener. So we'll see.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting. And, you start looking further down the road if you get through that. When they do get through this weekend, you start having some pretty big series coming up, particularly next weekend against Baylor.
That'll be what seems like the annual game now, the Friday game that will be at USA Hall of Fame Stadium in Oklahoma City. Not sure if we'll hit 8,900.
Sure.
We'll see. But
OU Texas is a little bit of a different animal.
By the way, getting 4,200 for Tuesday against Tarleton State.
It's crazy.
That's impressive. That's more impressive than what they did in the very first weekend.
Sure.
They've been able to fill it up every single time. But what Baylor is doing is very impressive. They're working their way into top 10 territory. Then you would go to Lawrence, and then comes the big one, obviously, coming up against Texas. And, conference season, it's a little bit more of a grind, a lot more teams, obviously, compared to what's been in this conference before. And I think they like that. I think, as much as you enjoy like sweeping 5-game tournaments in 3 days and things like that, this gives you like an eye on the prize type deal. There's a championship that's going to be involved here if you continue to play at the elite level.
Depending on what poll you're using, I know there's multiple softball
really
polls
are
out there, but it would seem that there's possibility 4 top 10 teams inside the Big 12.
Yeah.
If Baylor's able to jump in, obviously
Absolutely.
Oklahoma State, OU, and Texas.
And OSU and Baylor had a really nice series last weekend. Houston gets one from Texas. Surprised a lot of people, so that puts OU back atop the polls across the board. But, yeah, you're looking at 4 in the top 10. And then, if you relax too much, one of these other teams might be able to sneak up on you.
Sure. I don't know if these teams want to give OU too much leeway here. They're going to be tough to catch. Prediction. Oklahoma baseball on the other side of things, just down the street. It was a miserable night on Tuesday. Oklahoma loses to Oklahoma State. This is coming off of a 3-game sweep of Central Florida, which is a fantastic start to the conference play. It's going to be kind of interesting here. They did bounce back on Wednesday, get a win last night, or I guess Wednesday night, against UT Arlington 5-1. I think that more than anything, it was kind of needed just in terms of getting back out onto the field after what was a miserable performance every phase of the game on Tuesday night. Will Karsten was awful. It happened. Before the second out was made in the top of the first, Oklahoma State had played at 7 runs. It was just kind of one of those nights. And I think that, for a lot of people out there, you realize that it's baseball. This is going to happen at some point throughout a season. But because it was Oklahoma State, it probably hit.
Because it was the first time people were probably paying attention.
Well, and, much like the Oklahoma men's basketball team, every time that somebody
against Texas,
you pack the place, they have proceeded to kind of S down their legs. So, good bounce back. A big one coming up this weekend with TCU. And TCU is one of the best teams in the country. Depending on what poll you're going to use, somewhere in between 12 and all the way up to, I think, 6 in some polls. Pretty good RPI, 14-2 overall. And it'll be interesting. I think this is kind of a good barometer test to see where this thing is at in terms of conference play. And certainly going in after sweeping a doubleheader like Oklahoma or like the softball team did on Saturday. I think that there was a true, not belief, but they wanted to really get that Friday game in to avoid having to play a doubleheader and having to, you go into it. I don't think that sweeping it is necessarily what comes to mind, but they were able to do it. 4-3 in the first game, 11-3, and then they run rule Central Florida in 7 innings on Sunday, 14-2. So the offense has been pretty good. They just need to continue getting base runners, and I think that it's slowly but surely coming together.
After the first month, how do you feel about the pitching staff? Do you feel set on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal?
Yeah, I think that they're set Friday through Sunday. I think it's everywhere else that you're still kind of having to go through the, I guess, basically the routine of finding new arms. And that's the problem with bringing guys in. Skip's talked about it at length on radio as well as with us, before series and stuff. It's just really hard to find these, who are going to be the arms that you can really count on out of the bullpen when you don't really necessarily have a spring training or anything like that, like a major league team does, and kind of having to go through the doldrums of, okay, that's not going to work, or, okay, was that just a bad outing, and are we still getting good numbers from them? It's kind of tough to gauge, but I think for the weekend, you have Braden Davis, Brendan Girton, Jamie Hitt. That's going to be kind of your rotation for conference play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll see. Carson Atwood was really good in 3 innings, struck out a career high or tied a career high 4 on Wednesday night against UTA. It's kind of hard to, how good were they actually versus UTA, who isn't a very good baseball team. So I thought that Grant Stevens continues to be a guy on the left side that's going to give them some good innings, particularly maybe in that Tuesday role, if he's going to be somebody that you can come in and throw 3 or 4 innings, give or take. They're going to still throw Will Karsten. He had a bad night, obviously, against Oklahoma State, but he's a guy. And then, I think the bullpen is starting to take shape, though, whether it be the Witherspoon twins. They've been fantastic every time that they've been called upon. And, I think Ryan Lambert, I think that they want to have him more on the back end in the 8th and 9th. And so far, so good. He worked out of a little jam in the 8th on Wednesday night. So we'll see. Offensively, it's hard to complain about a bunch.
I was going to say, you've mentioned repeatedly on this show is how are they going to get the number of at-bats for this guy, that guy, this guy? Is any of that starting to just work itself out?
I think it's going to continue to work itself out. I think that with the way that Easton Carmichael is swinging the bat, you're not going to take him out of the lineup. And I think the easiest thing would be to just, he's going to be the catcher from day in and day out, the starter. But Scott Mudler's a really good backup, and he has produced offensively. I don't think that they were really expecting much from him, considering what he did at JUCO, actually a teammate of the Witherspoon twins at Northwest Florida. So it's a good problem to have. Last night they DH'd Carter Frederick. He got a hit. And we talked about it on the Unofficial 40 too. I love Kendall Pettis. And what he gives you in left field has been a constant for the last couple years. But if he's not going to hit the ball, maybe you start working Carter Frederick into left field a little bit. I know you're probably giving away a little bit defensively, And if you could get Kendall to kind of sign up for it, you could put him in when you need a defense.
Pinch runner.
Sure,
And come in
sure.
for defense.
We'll see, though. I don't think that they're relatively close to that quite yet. I think he's going to be your everyday left fielder, but just because of the speed with him and then Spikerman and Madron and Wright. So we'll see. I do think that some of these guys are having really good years and they're kind of going under the radar. John Spikerman continues to be a guy that is a catalyst for this offense in the leadoff spot. Jackson Nicholas is having a nice year at the plate. Michael Snyder's been excellent at third base. I don't think that you could look at somebody that has come in as a transfer and just been that consistent and kind of exactly what they needed. Getting Anthony McKenzie back has been good too. So all in all, 10-6, probably like not the sexiest record in the entire world.
Right.
But if you just keep winning weekends and stacking wins in the conference play, I think everything kind of take care of itself.
Just taking one from the Frogs good enough?
If you told me right now that they're going to go down to Fort Worth and take 1 of 3, I think that you would say, okay, yeah, that's good. I think that's the biggest thing in college baseball is just avoiding a sweep on the road, and particularly somewhere like Fort Worth. It's a tough ask to go down there, and TCU is a really good team. So it'll be interesting, though, because I think the opposite side of that is if you go down and you win a series and all of a sudden you're 5-1 to start conference play, then you can really kind of go back and look at the rest of the schedule and go, okay, like maybe everything's going to be fine because they have a little bit of a break here coming up after TCU. Well, not a break, but you have Dallas Baptist next week on Tuesday in Norman, which is going to be a really good opportunity to gain a little bit of RPI traction. And then West Virginia, which another really, really good team coming to Norman. So I was thinking the West Virginia Lamar weekends were flipped. So disregard everything that I just said. But so far, so good. I think it's been a pretty good product to date outside of the Tuesday night game in Norman. It was just an ass meeting. Sometimes it happens.
It happens.
And, the crazy thing about it is even when you're down 7-0, you load the bases in the bottom of the first. You did it again in the fifth. You had opportunities in the sixth. Like in the sport of college baseball,
chances.
7 runs really isn't just drastically like, okay, this game's over. So we'll see. Should be kind of interesting. As for basketball, Oklahoma loses on Wednesday in the Big 12 tournament. They lose to TCU. You knew you were going to be without Rivaldo Suarez. You knew you were going to be out without John Hughley. And then you kind of got the ultimate gut punch. 30 minutes before tip-off on Wednesday in Kansas City that Javen McCollum was also going to be out. You lose the game. How do you feel about Oklahoma's chances in the NCAA tournament? It's still a positive, correct?
Still a lock. I think the only question is, would they ever fall to the last 4 in?
Yeah.
Would they fall to where they
Which
have
would
to
obviously mean you're headed to Dayton.
end up to Dayton? And I know Porter's definitely we've got some talking points now. Not really politicking. I don't think he's as concerned about like where they are in the tournament, but he wants people to remember that they were 18-6 when they were full strength.
Yeah.
That they don't have a quad 2, quad 3, or quad 4 loss the entire season. So he wants people to remember that. The one thing I'm not sure if it's 100% truthful, he keeps saying by Friday or Saturday we would have all 3 back.
In terms of like he's talking about this weekend?
Yes. I don't know if that's posturing or like because I'm wondering if all 3 are going to be able to make it back for next week. I know Rivaldo Suarez will play.
Sure.
He'll just leave it all out there. If that ankle gets hurt, he'll deal with the 2 months it takes to try to get back. Javion McCollum, we learned it was the last 5 minutes of the Tuesday practice where he re-aggravated that left shoulder, so they kept him out. And with John Hughley, we know he's been out the last month with the meniscus surgery. Porter's been very receptive. It's like he's ahead of schedule. Does that mean that he's actually ready to play and be productive, or just ready to suit up and maybe just buy a few minutes here or there? But that was something he emphasized Wednesday. We are going to be full strength, and I hope the committee recognizes what we've done with our body of work when we've had our full set of players.
I think you can dust off the dancing shoes, like unless there is, just
I don't even know
all over the
what's
country.
left. That
Yeah,
could, I blow it up. Maybe a spot or two.
I think it would
but
have
not.
to be some very high-seeded teams in the Big Ten, the SEC, maybe even the ACC, like an NC State going on a run. that would be somewhat worrisome. I don't know if if you just gave a percentage chance of them missing the tournament completely. I think it's like in the 5 percentile right now. There's a really good chance that they're going somewhere next week. It's a good chance that you're going to hear Oklahoma's name called on Sunday because of the body of work that they put together, the 9 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. They don't have any bad losses technically. But at the same time, I think that, you just kind of got to wait. Like you don't control your own destiny right now. You're waiting to hear your name called. And it's a tough ask to just have to wait and kind of see how everything else plays out. But it does seem like Oklahoma's positioned themselves to get to the NCAA tournament for the first time under Porter Moser.
Yeah, Jerry Palm at CBS has him as a 9 seed despite the loss.
Sure.
Joe Lenardi has had him at a 10 before and has him as a 10 this morning.
As for the argument of would you rather be a 10 seed, I don't think it's just entirely crazy.
It's not. It's just you want to make sure you're the 10 seed and don't fall to that 11 to where then you're going to Dayton, because the difference, obviously, playing Tuesday or Wednesday in Dayton compared to Thursday or Friday, when you've got 3 guys banged up,
100%,
a world of a difference.
100%. It's going to be rather interesting. And by the way, I know that the oddity of the bracketology stuff, both Lenardi and Palm have them at different seeds, a 9 and then a 10, but also both had them playing Gonzaga, which is just kind of crazy how all the bracketology stuff works out.
And it's the last tournament game that OU played was Gonzaga.
That's right. I completely forgot about that up in Indianapolis, right? During the COVID year. That's crazy. Well, I'll say this. I don't think that you want the Gonzaga draw, but as I told some people on Twitter yesterday, even if it's a short stay in the NCAA tournament, it means that you're packing and you're going somewhere, and it's better than the opposite of having to answer a bunch of questions about getting ready for an NIT that, frankly, nobody would be excited for.
Or last year when you knew after the terrible third Bedlam outing that was it.
Yeah, it was completely over, and it was a disaster. All right, it's going to be interesting. Oklahoma women as well. They lose in their first game in Kansas City to Iowa State, who goes on and loses in the championship game to Texas. Monday night, I believe, will be the when you find out the destination for the OU women. I think they do that on Monday after the selection show on Sunday for the men. I think. Maybe it's Tuesday?
No, I thought maybe it was pushed to Sunday.
To what Sunday? It's on Sunday? On the exact same day?
Oh, no, we're going to sound stupid here.
I don't know.
I thought it got moved to Sunday now.
I didn't know that they moved it up on the same day. Interesting.
I'll have to double check. But we do know, I've talked about it a lot, and so now I feel bad about the last 3-4 weeks. I'm like, they got to stay at the 4th seed because you want to be able to host. And we learned they cannot host no matter what. Does not matter because of Big 12 women's gymnastics is in Norman that exact same weekend. So it does not matter if OU gets the 4 seed, or usually the top 4 seeds gets to host on their home floor for that first 2 rounds. That will not apply. So I don't know if there'll be a 4 seed. And if they are a 4 seed, I don't know where they would end up going either.
Sure.
In terms of that. But if they end up, they were
so
a 5 seed.
Could they still be a 4 seed but not host?
That's what's going to have to happen. But I don't know where you put them then.
Sure.
That's the interesting part of it.
Very interesting. Kind of a weird oddity with the Big 12 gymnastics. By the way, Sunday, March 17th. So it is on Sunday. It's at 7 o'clock. There you go.
That's why
I didn't know that they moved it up. That's on me. All right, whatever. Should be interesting. Both the men and the women should be dancing. Softball headed out to Lubbock. OU staying down in Fort Worth for a big series against the Horned Frogs. So, Bob, we appreciate it. We will talk to you next week right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. For Bob Prisbilla, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you next time.